Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our webinar on inclusive education, teaching strategies for learners with special educational needs in Southeast Asia. I am Hani Shahida binti Mazli.
I am Aisha Sofia binti Zakaria and will be your moderators for today's session. We're both TESOL students from Group PISMP of June 2021 intake, excited to explore the topic of inclusive education with all.
Before we begin, let's provide a brief overview of what we'll cover today. We'll start by discussing strategies for designing teaching and learning activities for children with learning disabilities, visual impairment, and hearing impairment in mainstream classrooms. Then, we'll dig into the issues and challenges faced in implementing inclusive education in schools. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a warm welcome to an Honorable Director of Institute of Teacher Education Darul Aman Campus for his opening remark.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Yang Berusaha, Madam Jamilah binti Kadir, the Director of Southeast Asian Ministers of Education Organization, Regional Center for Special Education Needs, SEAMEO SEN, Dr. Umazah binti Omar, the Head of Language Department, Institute of Teacher Education, Darul Aman Campus. Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum, a very good morning and Salam Malaysia Madani. A warm welcome to all of you for joining us today for this webinar on inclusive education. On behalf of the Institute of Teacher Education, Darul Aman Campus, I would like to extend my deepest gratitude for all participation. A sincere appreciation goes to SEAMEO SEN and Yang Berusaha Madam Jamilah for generously sharing her insight with us today. SEAMEO SEN, under the leadership of Yang Berusaha Madam Jamilah, has gained good reputation for its dedication towards educational excellence and collaborative effort for the years. All these efforts has joined upon a comprehensive understanding regarding inclusive education and successfully gained the collective commitment of stakeholders at all levels. Ladies and gentlemen, for your information, the objective of this webinar is to meet the requirement of TSLB 3132 Inclusive Education Course for the PISMP TESOL Year 3 Semester 2 group. This course offers an understanding on the concept and implementation of inclusive education in the teaching of the English language in Malaysia. The webinar is hoped to serve as a stepping stone for the course digital learning object. This initiative also underlines our IPGM commitment to empower technology and digital resources to enhance the teaching and learning methodologies. In conclusion, I would like to extend my gratitude once again to SEAMEO SEN for the support and congratulate to each of you for the dedicating in realizing the vision of inclusive education. Thank you so much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Now it's our pleasure to introduce our esteemed guest speaker, Madam Jamilah binti Kadir, the Director of the SEAMEO Regional Center for Special Educational Needs. Madam Jamila Kadir has extensive experience and expertise in the field of inclusive education, and we are thrilled to have her join us today.
Thank you for the invitation, actually.
Let's listen to a brief biography of Madam Jamila Kadir. Madam Jamila Kadir has devoted 30 years to the education sector with a notable 18 years specialization in special education. Her journey commenced as a mathematics and English teacher, gradually transitioning into the realm of special education. In 2016, she assumed pivotal role of the head of the State Special Education Unit, and she further advanced to the position of Senior Principal Assistant Director for the State Education's special education sector in 2019. In 2021, Madam Jamila Kadir took on the role of Deputy Director within the Planning and Research sector of the Special Education Division under the Ministry of Education in Malaysia. Notably, in October 2023, she took on the mantle as the Director of the Southeast Asian Ministers of Education Organization, Regional Center for Special Educational Needs, SEAMEO SEN. This appointment further exemplifies her enduring dedication to the field of special education, contributing significantly to its growth in Southeast Asia.
Let's welcome Madam Jamila Kadir to share her insights on inclusive education. Please welcome.
Okay. Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and a very good morning. Thank you, my beautiful moderators for the introduction. Okay, and Dr. Wan Fazli bin Wan Harun, Director of IPG, Campus Darul Aman, lecturers, and my dear teacher trainees. First and foremost, I would like to express my deepest gratitude for inviting me and also working together with SEAMEO SEN in this knowledge sharing session this morning. Okay, in SEAMEO SEN, we always look forward for opportunities in upskilling educators of learners with disabilities, especially you, our future teachers. And I know that since I've been told that you are all from the background of, you are doing TESOL, okay? Not specializing in special education, but specializing in TESOL. But in due time, when you go for, when you are already in the system itself, the possibility of you encountering pupils with learners with disabilities is almost, I would say 100%, because the number of pupils with learners with disability is growing, and majority of them, although they are in the special education integrated program, but there are many also in the mainstream, which we call them as the inclusive education program. So, ladies and gentlemen, similar to mainstream education, the education approach for our learners with disabilities must also be dynamic. It can, because the world is changing. Okay, the world has become volatile. It's very uncertain. Okay, so therefore, our elements across the curriculum. Okay, therefore, the teachers or learners with disabilities need to first understand. You must really need to understand who are your clients, who are your pupils. Okay, and what are the challenges, and how can you help these people? How can you actually help these pupils? Okay, but before I go on with the details, okay, since many people will be asking what is Southeast Asia, what is SEAMEO SEN, next you can see the logo is there. So allow me to share a brief introduction of what SEAMEO SEN is actually about, okay? And so that maybe once you understand what SEAMEO SEN works on, we can better know each other, then more collaboration and more working together can transpire between us, inshallah. Okay, so allow me to start first with what they call this as what is SEAMEO SEN is all about. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, SEAMEO SEN is actually stands for Southeast Asia Ministry of Education Organization Special Education Needs Regional Center. Okay, which is the one and only SEAMEO Center which specializes in special education, and it is based in Malacca. Okay, and our mission is actually to promote, as you can see there, is to promote and enhance quality of special educational needs practices. So since you are teacher trainees, so you'll be coming with best practices. What are the best practices to actually approach our learners with disabilities? And we do not only help teachers in Malaysia, but we also do help teachers from all over Southeast Asian countries, which encompass 11. Okay, and our vision is to become the leading center for quality teaching and learning in special educational needs. Okay, and under the sea or the Southeast Asian region, we have 11 countries that we cater for when it comes to special educational needs. Okay. And we have SEAMEO centers all over Sea region. We have 26 centers actually. And SEAMEO Sen is one of it. Okay. And we also have one network office. And 26 regional centers, they actually have their own, what they call it, they have their own expertise. Okay. For example, we do have a SEAMEO. In Malaysia itself, we have 3 SEAMEOs. Okay. The first is in Penang, which is a SEAMEO Center for a regional center for science and maths. They cater for science and maths teachers. Okay. And we also have a SEAMEO TropMed, which is on tropical medicine, which is under the Ministry of Health. And we have now the youngest SEAMEO in Malaysia is actually SEAMEO Sen, which was established in 2013. Okay. So we have many more SEAMEOs, and one of it is like for example, Regional Language Center, which is in Singapore. So many of our TESOL pupils or TESOL teachers, normally we go for courses in Singapore itself. Okay. Okay, now what are our priority areas? Okay. So as you can see, we have 6 priority areas, which is actually according to the Peraturan Pendidikan Khas 2013, which was, came out in 2013. Okay. In that guideline, okay, in that what they call it, in that law, bylaw, it's written there that we should cater for visual disability. We have hearing disability. We also have speech disability, physical disability, learning difficulties, and multiple. So when you talk about multiple disabilities, it's a combination of any of the 5 there. Okay, and in certain cases, you might meet children or pupils. For example, the child has the child has Down syndrome. At the same time, the child has what they call it, learning disability. Okay, for example, the child has autistic or dyslexic. Okay, so this kind of combination does not fall under multiple disabilities because it is still in the same category. You must understand. Okay, if it's the same category, it is not multiple. If it's between, for example, okay, this is just a knowledge. If the learner has got has physical disability, at the same time he's autistic, then that is multiple disabilities. Okay, so visual disabilities, for example, we have total blind. We have also cases with partial blindness, or we also have students who have with 50-50 vision, low vision. They call it low vision. Okay, as long as they have an OKU card, these are the categories that we cater. Okay, but under the Peraturan 2013, as long as the child has a declaration from the medical officer who has this problem, okay, or these areas, the child is considered as, now they call it special educational needs pupils, or in Malay is known as MBPK, Murid Berkeperluan Pendidikan Khas. Okay, they don't need to have an OKU card to be registered under the PPKI system. Okay, next, as you can see, okay, now you might be wondering SEAMEO Sen is governed under whom? Okay, so now SEAMEO Secretariat, we have SEAMEO Secretariat, or better known as SEAMES, which is the headquarters is in Bangkok. So Dr. Habibah, who was the ex-director of Director General of Education, she is now the director of SEAMEO Secretariat. Okay, under them they have 26 SEAMEO centers, and one of it we have 3 clusters. Okay, the first cluster is on cultural, and we also have science cluster, and where SEAMEO Sen now is under education cluster. Okay, so we have one director, which is me. Okay, we also have a deputy director. Okay, and we have 4 head of divisions, and we also have assistant officers and supporting staff, which accumulate to almost 34 of them. Okay, So, as was mentioned by the moderator just now, I was from the Ministry of Education. I was the Deputy Director for Special Education Division. Then, now, meaning that I have been in the Special Education Division for quite a long time. Prior to being in the Special Education Division, I was in the mainstream teaching maths because my degree is in maths actually. But later on, I delve into this special education since 2005 actually. Okay. Then I fallen in love in special education. Then I'm continued my career in special education. And about us. Okay, the slide before. Okay, you might be wondering. Okay, we have MRTS. You might be wondering what is MRTS. M is for management. Okay, we have 4 divisions. One is on management. We also have a division on research and innovation. We have another division on training and capacity building. And this is where most of our training of teachers is being designed here under this division. And we create courses on many levels. Okay, we have courses on international levels. We also conduct courses on national levels. Okay, and we also have strategic communication, which is more on public relation. And under the strategic communication also, we do our strategic planning. Okay, so when it comes to training, we conduct 3 types of training actually. The first type is on what they call this as a regular course, which actually we train teachers from 11 countries on Southeast Asia, including Malaysia. Okay. And we also have in-country course where we go to the certain countries and conduct our courses. For example, we have in our pipeline to give a course in PDR Lao somewhere in May or June. Okay. And we also have customized course. So this customized course is a course customized for our Malaysian teachers. And for this particular year, 2024, we are more towards like teaching. We have given courses on teaching approaches for dyslexia, dysgraphia, and dyscalculia pupils. Okay. And how does SEAMEO operate? So let's look at the operational framework. So this is the operational framework, how SEAMEO works. Okay, this is an organization. Okay, it is an intergovernmental organization. So I hope, because many people say that SEAMEO is a private sector. Actually, we are not private sector because we are governed by we have been given a grant by the government, Ministry of Education. So we are an intergovernmental organization. We represent the country. For example, we have here SEAMEO Chat, SEAMEO Intertech, Biotrop. These are all the SEAMEOs, 26 of them in 11 countries. Okay. And the one we are here now is SEAMEO Sen. Okay. We have governing board. Okay. Governing board members are members from countries which actually come from the government itself. Okay. For example, we have prior to her retirement, Puan Salma binti Jopri, who was the director for teacher professional development division. She was the director there. She just retired last week. She was our governing board. Okay. And we also have high officials. For example, our high official is our KSU, Ketua Setiausaha Kementerian, the Ministry of Education, KSU. Okay. Now, before I move on, I just would like, I'm not so sure whether you have heard about Sustainable Development Goals, or better known as SDG. Okay. So now, even if you have not heard, so I hope, ladies and gentlemen, you'll be able to Google. Now you can, information is just at the tip of your fingers. Do find out what is SDG is all about. But under the SDG, we actually have 17, okay, 17 SDG goals actually to what they call it, to achieve, okay. But we are actually under SDG 4. 4.0, okay, which is the quality education. Okay, so I'm going here because we are talking about inclusive education, so we need to know the root where it came from actually. Okay, so sustainable developmental goal here is actually 4.5, ensuring inclusive, equitable, quality education for all and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. This is where inclusive comes in. We have a lot actually. We have SDG 4.1, 4.2, 4.3 and so on until 4.7. And until 4.7, you have 4.7A, B and so on. But under this quality education, Sustainable Developmental Goal 4.5 is about ensuring inclusive, equitable, quality education for all and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all, which is under the UNESCO. Okay, so we have ratified this, so that is why Malaysia is actually going for this inclusive education. We are we are rampant on that. Okay, now, what is the definition of inclusive under the UNESCO? Okay, for example, in Malaysia, we do practice inclusive education program, or better known, when you go to schools, when you start working, people will be talking about PPI, Program Pendidikan Inklusif. Okay, but let us look for the definition under UNESCO itself. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, inclusive education, okay, has been defined. It is a process actually. It's a process of focusing and responding to the diverse needs of learners, pupils, okay, because no child is the same. Okay, so we have to cater for all the diverse needs of learners, and we try to remove all the barriers that actually impede the quality of education for these children. Okay, and by actually removing all these barriers, we hope to increase participation in learning and reducing exclusion within and from education. This is our motto actually. We want the children to learn together, to play together, to live together with the mainstream children, because there is nothing much difference. It's just they have a little bit of difficulties in learning. So, but it is the difficulty has been presented because of some barriers. If you can remove the barriers, then the child can learn. We have learned from that. Many cases we have seen that if the child can learn, okay, if the barrier is removed, then the child is actually, then you are helping the child to actually become successful in his future actually. Okay, for example, let me give you an example. Okay, many people say that if you can't see, then you cannot read. Okay, is it possible those times? Or if you are blind, then you cannot read, because most of us, we depend on our eyesight to read. But if we can remove the barrier, then the blind child can also read, because that is why we have Braille. So the Braille has become a tool for the child to read. Okay, and what about communication? Many people say that the deaf cannot communicate. Okay, this is where when you remove the barrier, the deaf child or the deaf community can actually communicate using sign language. These are the ways how we actually remove the barriers, or maybe you can improve to lessen the barrier so that the child can read. Okay, now inclusive education is all about access. It is all about access, giving access for the child to participate, for the child to learn. Okay, and when you look at it in UNESCO, the definition encompasses, for example, people disadvantaged by factors such as disability. One is disability, one is gender, poverty, cultural, ethnic, linguistic group, migration, conflict, and homelessness. Okay, in some countries, stateless pupils, stateless children. Okay, but here today we are talking about children with disability. Okay, so sometimes when inclusive education is only for disability, it's not so. Okay, but when SEN is talking about inclusive education, it is more on children with disability. Okay, because there are in certain countries where poverty is also, because of poverty, the child is unable to continue his studies. So that is also something that what UNESCO is trying to promote inclusive education so that all children are given opportunities for learning, or what they call is no child is left behind. Okay, now inclusive education, as I mentioned just now, removing barriers. What are the barriers? As I mentioned just now, the barriers, for example, he or she is unable to see, so how can she learn to read? This is where Braille has been introduced. Okay, there are many things, many ways we can actually teach children. Okay, in certain cases, for example, children with dyslexia, okay, they have what they call it is not about cognitive. Most dyslexic children do not have cognitive problems. It's just they have problem with their this is what I call in Malay as a kecelaruan. Okay, the kecelaruan. So they cannot identify which is B, which is D, which is C. They have problem with that. But if we can give them the proper way, the proper teaching approach, then the child can learn. This is how we actually remove barriers. One day, my dear teacher trainees, you will be facing pupils with this. Okay, I'm sure that you have also learned methods of teaching approaches, how to approach children with this problem and so on. Some children are more that is why we have multiple intelligence. Okay, you identify children, what are their intelligence. Okay, some children, they dislike reading. Oh, it's not because they dislike reading, because they cannot read. So how can we teach them to read? Okay, and it's inclusive education is also evolving process of change to make education more learner friendly. For your information, ladies and gentlemen, I had been the master trainer for inclusive education since 2011, okay, until 2021. I let go of my post as master trainer because of I was already the deputy director in special education division. Okay, so I was more on administrative part. Okay, but I have seen from 2011 until 2021, and since I was also appointed as a project manager for Initiative 34, which is quality inclusive education actually, and we have seen, and I have seen the evolution of inclusive education in Malaysia itself. Okay, by leaps and bounds, we have so much developed. Okay, and it can also happen inside and outside the formal education system. You don't just say that inclusive education happens only in school compound, but it also happens outside. Okay, it can also happen in the formal education. It can also happen in an informal setting. Okay, and it is a process. It is not an outcome, but it is a process with teachers, learners, parents, communities, and government itself. I do remember, okay, that when I first started as a master trainer, we had some difficulties for people actually to understand what is inclusive education. Some people say that inclusive education is about putting our children there and then nobody takes care of the children in the mainstream setting. But it is not so, okay? Because it is a process whereby we have approached teachers in the mainstream, teachers of the special education program, and we also the parents. And as you may have, I'm not so sure whether you do know about this or not, but in the special education division's website, you can find a few modules, and one is module Rakan Inclusive, module Guru, and module Ibu Bapa. This is what we call it, process with teachers, learners, parents, communities, and government. Okay, it's about making the education system more dynamic. Okay, we cannot say that people with disability cannot learn in our classroom. No. Okay, it has become something now. People with disabilities or learners with disabilities or children with disabilities can actually become they actually become grown-ups who can actually contribute to our system. Okay, it is about promoting values of diversity, equity, and respect. Okay, it all starts in the school. Inclusive education starts in school to learn to accept, the acceptance of special educational needs children, learners with disabilities, Okay. It is not about giving opportunity for learners with disabilities per se, but it also presents opportunities for pupils in the mainstream to actually learn to respect or learn to accept the existence of learners with disabilities. To be more, as they say it in Malay, lebih ihsan. Okay. And this is where we call it this karamah insaniah comes in actually. Inclusive education actually goes for karamah insaniah, whereby we learn to accept and respect everybody and everyone in our system. Okay. Now, disability inclusive education. So I've been talking about inclusive education. Okay. But we've been talking about inclusive education. Okay. Now, I would love to introduce you to this phrase, disability inclusive education, or we call it DIE. So DIE is actually an agenda that has been adopted to refer to inclusion for all marginalized groups in education. And as such, disability inclusive education has come in. Okay. It is, this phrase has been increasingly and commonly used at overseas level, especially in UNESCO, that describes the efforts that relate specifically to ensuring the inclusion of children or adults with disabilities in education. Because as I mentioned just now, when I mentioned earlier, inclusion is all about, is also about poverty, gender, and statelessness, homeless. But when you're talking about disability per se, we call this as disability inclusive education. That is giving or including the disabled into the education system. Okay, this is the one. And ladies and gentlemen, UNESCO has come out with one framework on this DIE. Okay, this DIE framework might look like something, what is this one talking about? Okay, this DIE framework is actually a framework that actually you can use to see how inclusive is happening in your classroom or in your organization. Okay, if you can comply all these elements in your organization, that means you have created a disability inclusive education friendly environment. Okay, so for example, okay, which is very closely related to you. You look at the supply part, okay? Teachers, initial and in-service training, pedagogical support, classroom support. So, initial and in-service are teachers who are already in the system. Initial teachers are teacher trainees. So, by actually today, what you have done today in your webinar, coming up with this webinar is actually what you're complying to what this DIE framework is all about. So I would like to congratulate this TESOL team, because you are actually have done this part of training, initial training, and how the service is delivered. Okay, and the rest is about the curriculum, the relevance, and the attitude, and everything so on and forth. I think you can read this through, because this is, I have, for your information, on this framework itself, I've given a talk 2 years ago on Country Report. Took me almost 1 hour to talk about only this. So I don't have that much time to talk to you about this per se, but I've introduced to you this disability inclusive education framework, which will be very helpful to you to actually to see what are the approaches that can be done to actually help the pupils or learners with disabilities. Now, the concept of disability. Now, disability, you can look it at, I would say, there are two types of models or approaches that you can look at disability. One is the social model, one is the medical model. Okay? But today, as you can see here, persons with disabilities include those who have long-term physical, mental, intellectual, or sensory impairments, which interaction with various barriers may hinder, again, the word barrier comes in, may hinder their full and effective participation. So let us look like number, the medical model versus social model. Okay, this model. Okay. So as you look into this model, okay, you see what is the difference between medical model and social model. When you understand this medical model and social model, this is where you can always, once you understand this, then you will know what are the teaching approaches that actually can actually help these learners with disabilities. Okay, the medical model says that a disabled person is at fault here. If he cannot do it, it's because of his disability. Okay, more on labeling. Okay, the impairment becomes the focus of attention. Oh, he cannot do it. I am sure. For example, one day the teacher goes in. Oh, I have a blind child in my class. I cannot teach because he's blind. Okay, so because you're focusing on the impairment, okay, you are not focusing on what the child can do. You do not know what the child is able to do. Okay, now this is where segregation happens. Okay, this is where you give alternative services, and once you give services for the alternative, then the ordinary needs it will be put on hold. Okay, now let's just look at the social model. Okay, the social model, the child is valued regardless of his ability or disability. The child is a learner. Okay, and we look at the strengths, we look at the needs defined by self and others. Okay, and it is more on outcome based, what the child can do, what the child can do in 5 years time. Okay, after I give a lot of intervention, so what the child can do after that, it is more on outcome. Okay, and all the resources are made available. Whatever the resource that's given to the mainstream children is also given to the learners with disabilities. Okay, and it is all about training parents and professional. That is where just now I mentioned we have module Rakan Inclusive, we have module Ibu Bapa, we have module parents. Okay, module Ibu Bapa, module Guru. Okay, we give them methods, approaches. Okay, and diversity is welcomed here. The more the merrier, the more diverse the merrier. And this is where, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce you to LRE, which is least restrictive environment. Okay, putting a child who has physical disability, okay, in a classroom on the ground floor, so the child has access for education. That is also one means of removing the barrier. Okay, so it is more on focusing abilities rather than the disabilities. I'm not so sure again whether you have heard this, mencari keupayaan dalam ketidakupayaan. This is the motto used by the Lembaga Peperiksaan when they came out with this examination of pentaksiran alternatif sekolah menengah. Okay, mencari keupayaan dalam ketidakupayaan, looking for ability rather than the disability. And let's look at we return back. Okay. Now, currently in Malaysia, we have, we call it this as we have 116,044 pupils, learners with special educational needs. Okay. So this data is only is as 31st October 2023. Okay, and out of the 116,044 pupils, I would like to concentrate on the house there. There's a building. Okay, so as you can see, we have schools with special education integrated program and special schools, but the inclusive programs, we have 2,665 primary and 1,168 secondary. So ladies and gentlemen, these are the children that you most probably or might highly probably you meet them when you start your career as teachers, because these children are placed in the mainstream classes. Okay, and one day you might remember. Okay, and then now let's look at the picture here. This is special education schools. We have 35 special educational schools throughout Malaysia. Okay, and the latest one is in Penang, Sekolah Menengah Kebangsaan Pendidikan Khas Bumbung 5. Yeah, and we have special integrated Education Integrated Program, or better known as PPKI, and Inclusive Education Program, which is DIE is all about lah. Yeah, actually DIE is all about giving or including the disabled into our education system. Okay, and there are schools where they have morning session and also afternoon session, because as the number grows, the number has grown by leaps and bounds, ladies and gentlemen, within these 4 to 5 years. So that's why in special education classes, and they also have similarly they have afternoon session and morning session. Even in certain countries, ladies and gentlemen, in Southeast Asia, okay, they implement this, what do you call it, inclusive education, in such that in the morning the child will go to a special education school, okay, until 12 o'clock. Then the child will go to another school, which is the mainstream school. So what does the child learn in the special education school? The child learns about sign language, the child learns on braille, the child learns on how to communicate. Yeah? And then after that, the child will go to, the learners with disabilities will go to another school in the mainstream. Okay? And this is one country which, there are several countries actually, in Southeast Asia, which practice this. But in Malaysia, we practice this. The one that is, in the PowerPoint now. Okay? So there are various types of how DIE is implemented throughout Southeast Asian countries. So we have data on that. Maybe one day we might be able to share it to you also, so that at least you will know what is happening in Southeast Asia countries. So because, ladies and gentlemen, we are not supposed to be saying that we are the best, we know everything. No, actually, the world is big, okay? Since I came in here, I've learned so many things. Although you cannot say I only learn, now I'm working, but you see, learning is a process. I'm still learning. I'm going to retire soon, but I'm still learning, because I accept learning is something that makes me wonder more, and I want to know more. So that's where I learned that in a country, in one of the countries in Southeast Asia, practice that the learners with disabilities will go to school, the special school in the morning, and in the afternoon they will go to mainstream schools. Okay, now who our stakeholders in special educational needs? I think this, you also become one of the stakeholders. Okay, so as you can see, these are the stakeholders. Now let's look at learners with hearing impairment. Okay, now research shows that 98% of our children, deaf children, are born to hearing parents who have no prior experience with deafness. I've seen cases when I was in the department, when I went to the school, parents who have parents with hearing problem, and the child also has hearing problem. So therefore, they have no prior experience with deafness and how to actually communicate with their deaf child. Okay. These are the problems that pose. Okay, and I'm going fast because I've been told I only have 2 minutes more left. Okay, 5 minutes. Okay, research activities highlight. These are some of the highlights. Some of the research that we have done. Actually, SEAMEO SEN, we have come out with 6 short videos covering the correct use, setting, and maintenance of a hearing and device. Now, you might be wondering, why is this hearing device so important? Okay, if the teacher does not know how to actually help the pupils with how to handle this teaching, hearing aid, it will be difficult actually, because these children, okay, normally they are not so well, they do not know much how to actually use the teaching, hearing aids. Okay, so it is an education resource to teachers and parents. You can, these are the video is actually is in the YouTube already, but it has not been launched properly. Okay, officially actually. Once it's been launched officially, we will share it to all of you. Okay, now learners with visual impairment, okay, they have with strong sensory skills, efficiency skills. Visual impaired children can actually enhance their other senses, okay, including any usable vision to get information. They have many ways to actually get information. It is actually I mean, all of us have five senses. When one has gone, then the four will enhance its ability. So this is where sometimes they will use touching. Okay, that's why braille is used, because the braille is, because it creates a sense of touch. Okay, now you have heard about learners with visual impairment. You have heard about learners with hearing impairment. But have you heard about children with deaf blind? They are both, they have deafness and they're also blind. A world which is dark and a world with no sound. Okay? Many people would think that they cannot do because the barrier is not one or two. So there are so many barriers that the child has to to overcome these barriers. But ladies and gentlemen, I met with a child who has been diagnosed as deafblind from childhood. Now, I think most probably he's already finished his master's program because the university or the school where he was in created the most least restrictive environment, ensuring that the child can actually learn. Okay. So this is how, so no child, I mean, you cannot say, oh, you cannot deem a child saying that he or she cannot learn, because you must find what are the strengths first. So let us look at some signs of learners' difficulties in learning. Okay. Okay, now, the first thing, when you, sometimes you will encounter children, I mean, they have not been to the doctors, they have not seen anybody, and the parents are sometimes in denial. And maybe this is where you need to come in. So learners that appear distracted, they are less motivated, they take much longer time to give response to questions given, struggle to understand. They really, really struggle. Okay. And they get frustrated. And when they get frustrated, this is where sometimes they become delinquents. Okay. But because we did not find the actual way, I mean, the actual method, the actual approach that can actually help the child. So when noticing these signs, please do talk with the learners. Find out what are the difficulties, what are the issues. Okay. And you reflect back on your own practice. Okay. And think on how to improve accessibility to the children. Okay. And ladies and gentlemen, it's important for teachers to value, especially now you are teacher trainees. I'm really happy that you are having this. So at least once you go to school, you will know how to handle these children. It is about valuing learner diversity. Okay. Different people, different child, different adults also have different methods of how to actually learn. Okay. And once you know they are quite different, then it is your responsibility to actually support all learners. Give them high expectation regardless impairments and learning. Don't give them I'm not going to expect so much from him because he has got a learning problem. No. Regardless of his disability, you need to have high expectations. Okay. You need to find abilities in these children. Emphasize on their abilities rather than their disability. And it's also about working together with the parents. You need to work together with the parents. Okay. You need to work together with the community and professionals. And you need to have a personal professional development, like continuous professional development. And once you recognize the disorders, then you will see that the child has, maybe you have to observe how the child is learning. Sometimes some children, they learn by seeing. So you need to use cards. You need to use visual learners, okay? You need to have flashcard pictures, pictorial assignments, okay? Reading, okay? Some children have problem with reading, then maybe they are very good at listening. So learn by listening. Identify what are their disabilities and find how you can actually approach them. Okay. And learn by doing, moving, raw activities. Because ladies and gentlemen, according to what they call this, according to Dale, I'm second Dale here. According to the Dale's phone, okay. What I hear, I forget. Okay. What I see, I remember, but what I do, I understand. So you need to make sure that the child or the learners with disability does not only listen, does not only see, but you must make sure that they do whatever assignments that have been given to them, and this is how they will actually understand. Okay, because for example, they are more towards vocational skills, so go for that. Okay, and establish relationship and trust with the child. And ladies and gentlemen, when it comes to pedagogy, okay, okay, pedagogical approach, okay, there are actually 5 models of teaching and learning. Okay, I gave this what do you call it talk on models on teaching and learning for special needs children. Okay, we have social models, we have information processing models, we have self-learning models, and we also have behavior system models, and we also have co-teaching models. So today I'm not I do not have enough time to diverge into these models, but you one day maybe we can have a session on whereby I can give more on this part. Okay, how when I say what is about social model, so what are the teaching on social model? It is about cooperative learning. So what is the difference between cooperative and collaborative learning? Okay, so these are some of the models that can be used to teach children with special needs in the classroom. Okay, we have also active learning. Okay, we also have the problem solving loop and many more. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, as I have been warned by my officer here, I only have a few seconds left. So there is no one template fits all in educating learners with disability. There's no one size that fits all. Okay, so you need to seek assistance from the special education teachers. Okay, and you need to seek assistance from the school administrators so that you can actually meet up with the parents. Okay, and also you need to seek assistance from your typical peers and also from the typical peers of the child. Okay, because this is what we call the ecosystem. The child's ecosystem is very important. There's one on the MIO system, the ISO system of the child is very important. And I'm sure that you have gone through even, if I'm not mistaken, Vygotsky's theory of zone of proximal development. So you have to identify, okay, who and what are their problems and who are the people nearest to them so that you can come out with the best method. Okay, as I mentioned, there is no size, there is no one template that fits all when it comes to educating learners, regardless whether they have disabilities or without disabilities. Okay, I think that's all from me. Okay, thank you very much, and thank you for having me here in your webinar. So whatever that I have given here today, I hope it will be beneficial for you. And once when you're already in the education system as teachers, I welcome you to SEAMEO SEN to become one of our participants in courses that we actually give to all our teachers. Okay, thank you very much. With that, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Madam Jamila, for that insightful sharing. In summary, we have discussed the strategies for designing inclusive teaching and learning activities tailored to children with learning disabilities, visual impairment, and hearing impairment in mainstream classrooms. Additionally, we have explored into the complexities and challenges associated with implementing inclusive education practices in schools. We've come to the end of our webinar. We'd like to extend our gratitude to Madam Jamila Binti Qadir for sharing her expertise with us today. Thank you for joining us. We hope you found this session informative and inspiring. With that, we'll sign off. Have a great day, everyone, and don't forget to scan the QR code for e-certificates.